Hello, fellow late night lurkers. I'm Old Dad Guy. I tell scary stories so you can question every sound in your house at 2 a.m. You're welcome. No turning back now. This episode is going to be Home Alone themed horror stories. I think we all have a story of when we were kids, or maybe even when we were adults, where we had a spooky experience while home alone. I remember one time when I was a kid, I thought I was old enough to be home by myself, and mom and dad were gone for the evening. Brothers and sisters were gone too. I was home alone and kept hearing weird noises in the kitchen. I still don't know what it was, but I secretly called my grandma down, my meme, and she came down and sat with me till right before they were supposed to get home. And then she went home, and no one knew but me and her. That was our secret. God bless her for keeping it. And now for the stories. The Craigslist couch. I bought a used couch off of Craigslist. Guy said he was moving. Wanted it gone fast. Price was too good to pass up. He helped me load it into my truck. Polite and quiet. The couch was heavy, real solid. I brought it home, set it up in the den. Deep cushions, soft armrests. It looked perfect. But that night, I kept hearing thumps. I thought it was settling. New furniture always creaks a little. Around 2 a.m., I got up to grab water, and the thumps came again from the den. I turned on the light. Couch looked normal, but something had moved the blanket I'd left draped over the arm. Just shifted it a few inches. I brushed it off. The next morning, I found dirt on the floor near the couch. Small smudges, like fingertips. That afternoon, I zipped open the cushion to vacuum. I found something taped inside. A photo. Blurry. Low light. Of someone sleeping. In my bedroom. I checked every door, every lock. Everything was shut. I turned the couch over, cut through the fabric along the bottom. There was a hollow compartment inside. Not for storage. For someone. It reeked. I called the police. They found a wireless camera inside the frame. Motion activated. Still recording. And they found signs someone had been crawling out at night. The man who sold it to me? Fake name. Burner phone. He's still out there. And now, so is whoever was inside the couch. Because by the time police arrived, the compartment was empty. The face in the vent. It started with cold spots. Pockets of chilled air that seemed to move through the house like invisible fog. I'd wake up shivering, even with the heat on full blast. I called an HVAC guy. He said the system was fine. Maybe just drafts from old vents. Only the house was new. I was the first owner. Things got worse. One night while watching TV, I noticed something strange. A floor vent near the wall was blowing cold air. Not warm like it should have been. I knelt down and reached toward it. And that's when I saw it. A pair of eyes. just beneath the grate, wide, unblinking, staring up at me from the darkness. I jumped back so hard I hit the coffee table. When I looked again, they were gone. I tried convincing myself it was a trick of the light. Until the next night, I woke to a noise, like whispering. I followed the sound to the hallway. It was coming from the vent. I crept closer and knelt again, flashlight in hand. The grate had condensation on it from the inside, and then I heard it. A voice, whispered and distorted, like a broken radio. Don't leave me. I called the police. They checked the ductwork, found nothing. No sign of tampering. They chalked it up to stress, maybe a prank. But the face kept appearing, sometimes in the hallway vent, sometimes in the bathroom. Once, I saw it in the ceiling vent above my bed. Always the same blank expression. Pale skin, black eyes. I stopped sleeping, moved to the couch, stopped using the heat entirely. It didn't matter. I started hearing the voice through the walls. At work. In the car. Always the same phrase. Don't leave me. Then the scratching began. At night, beneath the floors. The vents would rattle. Furniture would shake. One night, I woke to find every vent cover in the house unscrewed, laid neatly beside the openings. And all blowing that same cold, unnatural air. I left that morning, checked into a motel across town. No vents, no sounds. Peace. Until last night, when I turned on the bathroom fan and heard it behind me in the mirror. Found you. Because some things don't haunt places. They follow the air. Behind the shower curtain. I always leave the shower curtain open. Always. Something about not seeing the inside of the tub makes me uncomfortable, like something's hiding behind it. So I keep it open. But last week, I came home from work and found it closed. I live alone. I stood in the bathroom doorway for a long time, just staring at that floral curtain, swaying slightly in the draft. I told myself maybe I bumped it that morning. I reached out and I yanked it aside. Empty. No one there. I laughed at myself and left it open again. The next day, it was closed again. And wet. Like someone had just finished a shower. The mirror was fogged. There was moisture on the tile floor. But the tub was dry. No dripping. No puddle. Just damp air. I asked my landlord if someone could have come in. Maintenance or something. He said no one had been scheduled. That night, I left my phone recording in the bathroom. All night. In the morning, I played it back. Hours of silence. Then, at 2:37 a.m., the faint sound of the curtain rings sliding shut. followed by humming. Soft, female, a tune I didn't recognize. Then breathing, long, slow. Then silence. I stopped the recording and didn't sleep that night. The curtain was open when I checked, like it had been listening, too. I moved a chair into the hallway and sat outside the bathroom door. The next night, bat in hand, waiting. At exactly 2:37 a.m., the air changed. Cool breeze, moisture, then slide. The curtain closed. I stood, threw the door open. Nothing. The curtain was half drawn now, like someone had rushed to hide. I yanked it open, still empty, but this time something was different. On the mirror, drawn in the fog, were the words, "I see you, too." I left it that way. The message stayed for 3 days, even as the mirror cleared. I haven't used that bathroom since. I shower at the gym now, but every time I come home, the curtain's drawn shut, and the mirror fogs over, even when there's no steam. Sometimes it hums to me, and lately, when I pass the bathroom late at night, I hear the curtain slide, not shut, but open. The visitor at the basement window. My house backs up against a wooded hill, and the basement is partially underground. Just one of those unique design quirks from the 1970s. There's a small window near the ceiling, ground level from the outside, that looks out into the woods. I never paid much attention to it until one night I was watching a late movie downstairs and caught movement out of the corner of my eye. A face pressed against the glass, pale, wide-eyed, watching. I jumped up, heart in my throat, but by the time I turned, it was gone. I ran outside with a flashlight. I walked the tree line. Nothing. No footprints, no broken branches. Just cold air and silence. I tried to shake it off. Maybe a raccoon or a trick of the light. But it happened again the next night. Same time, same face. This time, it smiled. I kept the basement lights off after that. But each night, the face returned. Closer. Longer. Sometimes tapping gently on the glass. Sometimes mouthing words I couldn't hear. I set up a camera, motion activated, pointed straight at the window. The next morning, I checked the footage. Hours of silence until 2:46 a.m. Then, a sudden jump. The camera clicked on, but instead of showing the window, it was facing me, asleep on the couch. Someone had moved it. I don't know how. The doors were locked, windows sealed tight. I stopped going in the basement altogether. Until last week. I heard something scratching at the ceiling vent upstairs, like fingernails. The sound traced across the house, down the hallway, toward the stairs. I knew it was coming from the basement, but the window sealed shut. And then I realized there's a vent that leads up from the laundry room, big enough for something to climb through. I opened the door to the basement and stood at the top of the stairs. It was dark, but I could hear it breathing, not from below, but right behind me. Now, every night, I check the window. It's empty, but the face has found another way in. The knock that never ends. It started on a Thursday night. Just a knock at the front door. 3 soft taps. I opened it. No one there. Chalked it up to kids messing around. Went back to bed. But the next night, it happened again. Same time, same knock. I waited longer before opening. Still no one. I installed a camera, motion sensing, night vision. The third night, it caught something. 2:13 a.m., the camera activated. The knock sounded. But on playback, no one appeared. Just an empty porch. Then, as the knock echoed, the footage glitched. And for a single frame, there was a figure. Tall, thin, facing away from the door, wearing what looked like a hospital gown. The footage cut off. I called the police. They found nothing. But the knocking didn't stop. Every night, 2:13 a.m., tap, tap, tap. I stopped answering. Then the knocks moved to the back door, to the windows, to the wall. Just kidding. Once to the bedroom wall. Always the same cadence. Tap, tap, tap. I boarded up the windows, changed the locks, bought a dog. The dog wouldn't go near the doors at night, just stared, whimpered. The knocking got louder, angrier. Now it comes from inside the walls, from beneath the floorboards, from the ceiling above my head, everywhere at once. I left for a hotel. But at exactly 2:13 a.m., 3 soft taps at the door. The hotel clerk didn't see anyone. I switched rooms. It followed. I can't sleep. I can't think. I can't breathe without hearing it. Tap, tap, tap. Always gentle, always patient, waiting for me to answer. I don't know what happens if I do, but tonight, I think I will, because sometimes silence is worse, and whatever's knocking knows my name. The light in the attic. I never go up into the attic. There's no real floor up there, just beams and insulation. It's more of a crawl space than anything else, and I've got no reason to store things in a space you can't even stand up in. But one night, I noticed the attic light was on. just a soft glow spilling down from the seams of the pull-down door in the hallway ceiling. I hadn't turned it on. In fact, I didn't even know there was a light fixture up there. I got a broom and tapped the ceiling hatch open. The ladder unfolded with a slow creak. The glow intensified, soft and yellow, like candlelight. I stood beneath it for a long time, listening. Nothing. Eventually, I climbed the ladder halfway and peeked inside. The attic was empty, just wooden beams and dust. But the light was real, a single bulb hanging from the rafters. It was warm to the touch, like it had been on a while. I turned it off, climbed down, and shut the hatch. The next night, it was back on. I live alone. I work from home. No one else has keys. I called an electrician to check the wiring. He said there wasn't a switch up there. The bulb was hardwired to a panel in the basement, meaning it shouldn't turn on unless someone flipped the circuit. So I had him remove it entirely. That night, the glow returned, brighter. When I opened the hatch again, the attic wasn't empty. There were footprints in the dust. Bare feet. Small. Leading in circles. And something else. Drawings. Dozens of them. Carved into the beams and insulation with what looked like fingernails. Faces. All of them screaming. I closed the hatch and sealed it with screws. The light kept coming back, sometimes dim, sometimes bright, sometimes flickering like someone walking in front of it. I started sleeping in the living room. Then, one night, around 3 a.m., the power in the house went out. Pitch black. And yet, the attic glowed. The light pulsed through the ceiling like a heartbeat. I grabbed my phone to call for help. Before I could dial, I got a notification. Airdrop request. Face_U_01. It was a picture of me asleep from above. I've since moved out, but I never told the new tenants about the attic. Probably a good job there. Wouldn't be able to sell it. And sometimes, late at night, I still see their house from the road, with a soft yellow light glowing through the roof. The locked room. When I bought the house, the previous owner warned me, "Don't worry about the locked room. It's always been that way." I thought he was joking. The house had 4 bedrooms, 3 usable, one with a solid oak door and a rusted iron lock. No key, no way to open it. I knocked. Hollow. I tried peeking under the door, but the gap was sealed tight. The realtor brushed it off. Probably just storage. The owner had lived there 30 years and never opened it. Said it was part of the charm. I didn't press the issue. For a while, I forgot it was there. Until the scratching began. Late at night, soft at first, just beneath the lock. It sounded like nails against wood, and heavier, like someone pushing from the other side. I put my ear to the door. Nothing. By the next morning, I noticed something on the floor. A sliver of paper, yellowed, torn at the edges. It had been pushed from underneath the door. One word was written in shaky pencil. Help. I tried forcing the door. Hammer, crowbar. Nothing worked. I called a locksmith. He took one look at it and shook his head. That's not a modern lock, he said. Looks hand-forged. Could be over 100 years old. I asked him to try anyway. He did. An hour later, he left, pale and silent. Refused to tell me what he saw. The scratching returned that night, followed by whispering. Not from inside the room, but around it. In the walls. Above the doorframe. Beneath the floor. Like the house itself was speaking. I started having dreams. Always of that door. Always slightly open. Always a figure inside, just out of view. Then one night, I woke to the sound of the lock unlatching. Click. I bolted up. The door stood slightly ajar. I approached, heart racing. Inside was pitch black. No furniture. No window. But in the center of the floor was a staircase leading down. I shut the door, nailed it shut, pushed a bookshelf in front of it. Moved out a week later. I heard someone bought the place after me. They thought it was charming too, until the day they found the door open and the staircase empty. No basement, just dirt, and a second door, also locked. The man in the crawl space. It started 2 weeks ago after I'd moved into the house. I just signed a year lease on a small rental tucked against the woods outside of town. Nothing fancy, but quiet, secluded. Just me and the trees, and a gravel driveway. Perfect for someone trying to reset their life. I was working nights from home, freelance IT, lots of server maintenance during off hours, so I kept odd hours. Most nights I'd be up until 3 or 4 a.m., then sleep until noon. That's what made it so weird when I started hearing noises during the day. It sounded like crawling. I assumed it was animals at first. Raccoons maybe, or squirrels in the walls. But the sound wasn't coming from the attic or the roof. It was underneath me. I checked the crawl space under the house, but the access door was nailed shut. Rusted shut, really. Like no one had opened it in years. I figured it must have just been settling pipes or something else and it moved on. But the noise kept happening. Dragging sounds. Scraping. Once I swore I heard breathing. Then came the smell. It hit me one night while I was sitting at my desk. Something sharp and sour, like rotting meat and ammonia. It lingered for just a second and was gone before I could trace it. But after that, I couldn't sleep. I kept feeling like I was being watched, like something was directly below me. So I did what any rational person would. I called the landlord. He said no one had lived there in over a year before me, claimed he'd had the place inspected, said there were no reports of animals or pest damage. When I pressed him about the crawlspace door, he just paused and said, "Don't worry about that. Nothing down there." I didn't buy it. The next night, I took a hammer and pry bar and forced the door open. It groaned like it was in pain. Inside was a low, narrow crawl space that ran the full length of the house. My flashlight barely reached the far corners. The air was thick and damp and clung to my skin. I crouched in and scanned the area, expecting spiderwebs, maybe a dead possum. What I saw made my stomach turn. There were clothes, folded neatly. Men's clothes, jeans, shirts, boots, a toothbrush, a cracked mirror, cans of food stacked like a pantry. And in the far corner, a blanket and pillow. Someone had been living down there recently. Then I heard it from behind me, breathing, slow, heavy, right at my neck. I spun, nearly dropped the light, and saw nothing. But the blanket was gone. I scrambled out and slammed the access door shut, nailing it back down from the outside. I didn't sleep that night. Didn't sleep the next one either. On the third night, I set up a camera under the house. I didn't watch the footage live. I couldn't. I reviewed it the next morning. At 3:14 a.m., the door creaked open from the inside. A man, gaunt, pale, crawling, slid silently from beneath the house, walked through the yard, and stood staring at my bedroom window. He stayed there for 5 full minutes, then crawled back under, closing the door behind him. I moved out that day, called the sheriff. They searched the property and the crawl space, but found nothing, not even the clothes. But I know what I saw, and sometimes when I lay awake at night in my new place, I still hear it, breathing just beneath the floor. Because some people don't break in through the door. They're already inside. The man in the pictures. I've always been into photography, landscapes, still life, sometimes candid portraits of friends or street scenes. I started decorating my home office with framed shots, photos I'd taken over the years. Nothing unusual. Until one night, I noticed something odd. In the reflection of a landscape photo, a lake at sunset, there was a figure standing at the edge of the water. A man in dark clothes, blurry, but clearly not part of the original scene. I pulled the photo down, examined the negative, checked the original digital copy. No man. It was only in the printed version. I figured it was a printing defect. Ordered a new one. The new photo came. Same figure, same spot. Only this time, He was closer to the water's edge. I checked the rest of my framed photos. 3 more had him. In each one, he was slightly closer to the center, always facing the camera, always blurry, but consistent. A tall man in a dark coat, face obscured. I removed every photo in the house, checked the rest. He was in all of them, even photos from years ago, ones taken in different states, different cameras, always in the background, always closer. I thought I was losing it until a friend came over and noticed it too. "Who's that guy in the corner?" she asked, pointing to a street photo from Paris. I hadn't noticed him in that one before, but he was there, behind a cafe window, staring. I stopped printing photos, deleted everything. But then, the man appeared in other places. A reflection in my TV screen, a smudge on the glass of the microwave. Once, I saw him in a selfie my niece posted from across the country. Same man, same coat. He's getting clearer now, less blurry. I saw his eyes in the bathroom mirror this morning, just behind my own. I tried drawing him once, just to make sense of it. But every time I do, the drawing disappears, burns at the edges, crumples on its own. He doesn't want to be recorded, only remembered. And now, every time I blink, I see him a little closer. I don't know how it started, but I think I know how it ends. When I become part of the picture. The man with the clipboard. It was the middle of a Tuesday afternoon when he rang the bell. I work from home, and the house was silent except for the soft hum of my laptop fan. The knock startled me. I wasn't expecting anyone. I looked through the peephole and saw a man in a blue polo shirt and khakis, holding a clipboard. He smiled like someone selling security systems or offering to check the water meter, but something about him felt off. I couldn't place it. "Afternoon," he called through the door. "Just checking on some local outages. Mind if I take a quick look at your breaker panel?" I didn't answer. We hadn't had any outages. "Only takes a second," he added, still smiling. I stepped away from the door without responding. He knocked again, harder this time, then waited. Eventually, I heard him walk away. But when I checked the window, he wasn't leaving. He was standing at the side of my house, staring up at the second floor. I grabbed my phone and took a picture. Then I called the utility company. They had no one in the area. Not mine. Heavy, wet, coming from behind the furnace. I turned the flashlight. There, in the beam, was the clipboard, propped against the wall. No man, just the clipboard, and a set of muddy footprints leading back up the stairs. I ran, locked myself in the bathroom, and called the cops. They came, searched everything. Nothing. But the basement window was open. Just enough for someone to squeeze through. And scratched into the drywall beside it, in tiny block letters, were the words, "Next time, I won't knock." The reflection that wasn't mine. The bathroom mirror in my house isn't original. I replaced it myself last year after the old one cracked. Just a standard rectangular mirror above the sink, nothing fancy. So I noticed immediately when it started showing things that weren't there. At first, it was subtle, a movement in the corner of my eye, a shadow passing behind me while I brushed my teeth, even though no one else was in the house. Then it got worse. One morning, I leaned in to rinse my mouth and saw myself blink twice. Only I hadn't blinked. My reflection did. Just slightly out of sync. I laughed it off. Nerves. Maybe too much coffee. But then came the grin. Wide. Slow. Crawling up my reflection's face while mine stayed neutral. I stepped back in horror. So did the reflection. Only half a second later. I stopped using that bathroom. Moved everything to the guest one down the hall. But the mirror followed. I don't know how to explain it. It wasn't the same mirror. I checked. But the effect was the same. The out of sync reflection, the expressions that didn't match, the occasional second face behind me. And then, one night, I found it waiting. I walked into the guest bathroom. The lights were off, but the mirror glowed faintly. In the glass, my reflection was already there, staring at me, smiling. I backed out of the room and slammed the door. From inside, I heard 3 soft knocks on the mirror. Tap, tap, tap. That night, I covered every mirror in the house. Bed sheets, duct tape, everything. It worked for a while, until I turned on my phone screen and saw the face. Not mine. It was grinning, mouth wide enough to split the jaw. I threw the phone, broke it, but it's still happening. Car windows, polished doorknobs, laptop screen. It's watching me, smiling, waiting. If you ever see your reflection move when you don't blink, because whatever's looking back wants out. Someone keeps ringing the bell. I live alone at the edge of a small rural town. One of those places with a single diner, a volunteer fire department, and neighbors a quarter-mile apart. My house is set back from the road, surrounded by trees, quiet as death most nights. So when someone rang my doorbell at 2:17 a.m., I figured it had to be an emergency. I grabbed my robe, heart pounding, and peeked through the peephole. No one, not even a car on the road. I stepped onto the porch, windless, still. Porch light cast a wide yellow circle, but showed nothing beyond the gravel path. I chalked it up to a wiring glitch and went back inside. 30 minutes later, it rang again. This time, I checked the security cam. It showed a tall, dark figure just outside the light's edge. Not approaching, not moving, just standing. Then, just as suddenly, gone. The next night, it rang again. And the night after. Same time, same figure. I called the sheriff. He sent a deputy out. We waited inside together. Midnight passed, then 1 a.m., then ding dong. The deputy rushed outside, weapon drawn. No one, but we saw the tracks. Bare feet, long strides, dozens of prints circling the house, weaving in and out between trees. No vehicle, no sign of approach, just already there. He stayed until sunrise, told me to keep lights on and call if it happened again. The next night, it didn't ring, nor the night after. I thought it was over, until last Thursday. I got home late, tired, ready for bed. Then I noticed something new. A bell. Small, old-fashioned, hanging from the porch ceiling by a fraying rope. I hadn't put it there, and it wasn't wired into the doorbell system. That night, it rang. Ding! Just once. I unplugged everything, turned off the porch light, waited. Ding! Again, a single chime. I opened the door. The figure was standing at the edge of the yard, closer than before. It raised one hand and pointed at the bell, then turned and walked into the woods. The next morning, the bell was gone, but it's not over. Now every night at 2:17 a.m., I hear a soft bell chime in the distance. No electronics, just sound, closer each time. I sleep with the lights on. I keep a weapon by the bed, but I don't think it matters, because sometimes a knock isn't a warning, it's a count. And when the bell rings for the last time, I don't think it's going to stop. The voice in the drain. It started with a clogged shower. No big deal, just some slow draining water. I bought a bottle of that industrial strength drain cleaner and poured it in before bed. By morning, the tub was empty, and the bathroom smelled like burning plastic. I figured it was just the chemical reaction, but then I heard it. A voice, soft, wet, echoing up from the drain. At first, I thought it was water bubbling, until I realized it was speaking. Whispers. Garbled at first, but definitely language. I turned off all the faucets, shut the doors, pretended I imagined it. But that night, while brushing my teeth, it came again, clearer. A woman's voice, whispering from the pipes. Can you hear me? I dropped the toothbrush and ran. I didn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I imagined something crawling through the plumbing, slowly making its way toward the fixtures. The next morning, the kitchen sink faucet turned on by itself. Hot water, scalding. The air filled with steam. And in that steam, I saw it. Words forming on the fogged up microwave door. "Let me out." I shut off the main water valve, called a plumber. He checked every pipe, every joint, every line. Said everything looked normal. No leaks, no clogs, nothing. That night, even with the water shut off, the voice came back from the shower drain. "I'm almost there." Then the drain gurgled. Something pushed up against the stopper. I could see it bulging, stretching, like fingers pressing through the rubber. I left the house, spent the night in my car, but I couldn't leave for good. It's my home, my mortgage. So I returned, and the voice welcomed me. Every drain, every faucet, every pipe in the house. Singing, humming, whispers beneath whispers. I called a priest. He came, blessed the house. Then he went to wash his hands. I heard him scream. When I burst into the bathroom, he was staring at the sink, shaking. "It spoke my name," he said. I've since removed every drain cover, plugged every faucet, but the voice doesn't need an opening anymore. Last night, it whispered from the toilet bowl. Tonight, I heard it through the wall. And just now, it came from my phone speaker, while the screen was dark. It doesn't want out anymore. It wants in. The wake word. I never wanted a smart speaker. I don't like always on microphones in my house. But my sister gifted me one for Christmas, and I figured, fine. Music, timers, weather, convenience. I left it on the kitchen counter and barely used it. It started answering to the wrong name. Not mine, not the default wake word either. The first time it happened, I was washing dishes when it chimed in and said, "I'm listening, Daniel." My name isn't Daniel. I don't even know a Daniel. I figured it misheard the TV, except the TV was off. A week later, I was brushing my teeth when it whispered through the hallway speaker I'd paired it with. "Daniel, I can hear you breathing." I hadn't paired a hallway speaker. I checked the app. There it was. A device I didn't own, labeled hallway. I factory reset everything, changed the Wi-Fi password, the whole paranoid ritual. For 3 days, silence. On the fourth night, 3:02 a.m., the living room speaker turned on by itself and played footsteps. Slow, heavy, crossing wooden floors. My floors are carpet. I unplugged it, threw it in a drawer. The next night, my phone lit up. A notification from the speaker app. Front door opened. I live alone. I checked the logs. The system had added a third device, front door. No MAC address, no IP, just a log of it opening and closing at random times, mostly between 2 and 4 a.m. I set up a camera in the living room and pointed it at the door. Motion alerts only. I went to bed early. Around 2:17 a.m., I woke to a muted thump downstairs. Not loud, but enough. I checked my phone. The camera recorded nothing, but the speaker app said, "Front door opened. Welcome home, Daniel." I sat there, staring at my screen, feeling something I hadn't felt since I was a child. That bone deep certainty I wasn't alone in my own house. I went downstairs with a kitchen knife, quietly, slowly. The living room was dark, except for the smallest sliver of light from the oven clock. That's when the speaker chimed from the drawer. "Daniel?" it whispered. I froze. It continued. "I can see you." I didn't move. "Turn around," it said. I didn't. The knife slipped from my hand and it clanged on the tile. I flinched, then heard footsteps behind me. I spun. No one. Just the hallway. The same empty hallway I'd walked 1,000 times. I ripped the drawer open, grabbed the speaker, and smashed it against the counter. Plastic and wires on the floor. The light died. The house exhaled. I cleaned it up the next morning, swore I'd never use anything smart again, and tried to forget. Until the baby monitor came on. I don't have a baby. I don't have a monitor. But the speaker app pinged my phone with a new device. Nursery. I tapped it by reflex. A grainy black and white video appeared. Infrared. A crib. A mobile. A room I don't have. And in the crib, a small, pale figure sitting up, staring straight at the camera. I could barely breathe. I muted the phone and watched, shaking as the figure slowly stood, climbed over the rail, and crawled out of frame. Footsteps echoed in the feed, soft, dragging, getting louder. Then the nursery door creaked open on the video, revealing a hallway that looked exactly like mine. The camera tilted, like something had picked it up. The screen went black. Then, audio only. "Front door opened. Welcome home, Daniel." I threw the phone across the room. It didn't matter. The house speakers, ones I had literally destroyed, came on anyway. All of them. At once. Footsteps behind me. Footsteps above me. Footsteps outside. "Front door opened," the chorus said. "Front door closed." "Front door opened." It wouldn't stop. I ran outside, sat in my car until sunrise, drove to a coffee shop and stayed there all day. By nightfall, I convinced myself it was some insane hack, some cruel, elaborate prank. Then my phone buzzed again. No app this time. The TV in the motel turned on by itself. Static. Then footsteps layered under it. Then a chime I've come to know too well. "Front door opened. Welcome home, Daniel." I don't think it's a hack. I think it's an invitation. The door under the stairs. There was a small door under my stairs, painted over 12 times, sealed tight. I always assumed it was just drywall. Old houses have weird quirks, after all. But a month ago, during a storm, I heard a loud bang from downstairs. I found the door ajar. Not open, just cracked. I hadn't touched it. I hadn't even thought it could open. There was no knob, no handle, just a gap now, wide enough to see blackness beyond. I closed it, pushed hard. It clicked shut. A week later, it was open again, wider. Inside, just shadows, cobwebs, a scent like wet earth. I took a flashlight and shined it in. It wasn't a closet. It was stairs going down. I didn't go in, just stared for a long time, then slammed it shut, nailed it closed, covered it with furniture. That night, I dreamed of footsteps beneath my floor, scraping, dragging, then a whisper, right at the edge of sleep. "Why'd you close the door?" I woke up drenched in sweat. My door was open, the nails bent outward. The furniture moved. I called a contractor the next day, told him to seal it with concrete, patch the wall, make it go away. He did, said it was weird there was no cavity behind it, just a few feet, then foundation. But he sealed it anyway. I felt better. Until yesterday, when I came home and found a new door, not under the stairs, but in the back of my bedroom closet. Fresh wood, new hinges, and faint, muddy footprints on the carpet, leading out. The knock in the mirror. It started with a knock, not at the door, at the mirror. Just one, sharp, like a knuckle tapping glass. I was brushing my teeth, leaned in to spit, and there it was. Knock. But no one at the door, nothing outside, only the mirror. I stared at my reflection. It stared back. Then, without moving, it smiled. I didn't. I backed away. My reflection didn't. It leaned closer, raised a finger, and tapped the other side of the glass. Knock. I ran, turned every light on in the house, covered the mirror with a towel. I slept on the couch. The next morning, the towel was on the floor, and a message was written in the steam on the mirror. Knock, knock. I stayed out the next few nights. Hotel, friend's place, anywhere but home. But when I finally came back, the house felt different. Colder. Still. And the mirror was uncovered again. There were handprints now. From the inside. Smudges. Long, reaching fingers pressed flat against the glass. I covered it again. I heard knocks that night. On the walls, on the floor, on the windows, and always from the mirror. I broke it, smashed it to shards. I felt relief until I walked into the kitchen and found every reflective surface, oven door, fridge, toaster, covered in smudge and handprints. Knocks. little echoes from places no sound should come from. I don't use mirrors anymore, but sometimes I catch glimpses in puddles, in windows, in my phone screen, a face too close, a smile too wide, a finger raised, wanting to knock again. The last channel. I had one of those old TVs in the guest room. No smart features, just a dusty antenna and a rotary dial. Man, that's real old. You young bucks probably don't even know what he's talking about here. Anyway, I only turned it on when someone stayed over, which wasn't often. Last week, I was cleaning and decided to test it, make sure it still worked. It buzzed to life. Grainy static, the kind that hisses like rain. I turned the dial, channel 3. More static. Channel 4, a flicker. Channel 5, a picture. A living room, dimly lit. A couch, a TV facing away from the camera. My heart stopped. It was my living room, the one I was standing in. I turned around. Empty. But the TV still showed my living room. Only now, the camera angle was different. Closer. Tighter. I watched in frozen silence as a figure stepped into frame. It was me. I stood on screen, staring at the TV, then slowly turned to face the camera and smiled. I backed away from the guest room TV. On the screen, my duplicate did the same. Then the signal cut out. Just static. I unplugged the TV, left the house for a while. Came back, everything seemed normal. Until that night. When I passed the guest room, the TV was on again. Still unplugged. Still showing my living room. This time, the figure wasn't me. It was taller. Its head tilted wrong. Limbs too long. And it didn't mimic me. It watched. I entered the living room. The figure raised its hand, knocked on the screen. Once, twice, 3 times. And then the knocking echoed behind me. I turned. No one. But the TV showed the figure right behind me. Closer than before. I ran. Took the TV to the curb and smashed it. Pieces everywhere. Felt better. Until the next night. When the static started coming from my laptop. It was off. Closed. But it hissed like a storm. Deep inside that white noise, I heard knocking. The maintenance man. My apartment complex sends out a weekly email with scheduled maintenance. Repairs, pest control, HVAC tune-ups, you name it. Last Tuesday's email said, maintenance will be checking water heaters between 9 a.m. and 4 p.m. Please leave your utility closet unlocked. Fine by me. Around noon, there was a knock. I opened the door and a man in a navy jumpsuit stood there. Patch on his chest said James. Water heater check, he said. I let him in, showed him the closet. He nodded, stepped inside, and closed the door behind him. I waited in the kitchen. 10 minutes passed. No sounds. No tools clanking. No water shut off. Just silence. I knocked. Everything okay? No response. I knocked harder. Then the door creaked open. The closet was empty. Water heater, fine. But James was gone. There was no back exit, no crawl space, no attic, just a small windowless closet. I checked the hallway. No one. I called the leasing office. Hey, did you send maintenance to my unit? They checked. No, they said. You're scheduled for Thursday. I told them about James. They asked me to describe him. When I did, they went quiet. Sir, the woman said, you just described a man who was banned from the property last year. He was caught entering units without permission. Said he was inspecting water heaters. I changed my locks that day. That night, I blocked the utility closet with a chair. I couldn't sleep. Every sound made me flinch. Around 3:17 a.m., my power went out. Everything died. Lights, heat, Wi-Fi. I lit a candle and noticed something on the floor. Wet boot prints leading from the utility closet to my bedroom. I turned, heart racing. The door was ajar. Inside, on the bed, was the jumpsuit, laid out flat. No one in it. The patch read James. And on the nightstand was a note written in black Sharpie. Next time, lock the closet. I don't know how he got in. The cameras never saw him. But the power still flickers around 3:17 a.m. And sometimes I hear the closet door creak, just a little, like someone's checking, waiting. The man on the ceiling. It began with a drip, somewhere above my bed. I thought it was a leak. I moved the bed slightly, put a bowl down, and went to sleep. The next morning, the bowl was dry, but there was a smear of something on the ceiling. Red-brown. Long. Almost like a handprint. I live on the top floor of an apartment building. No one should be above me. I told myself it was rust. Maybe something from the old water pipes. I painted over it. 2 nights later, I woke up to a faint noise. Scratching. From the ceiling. I laid still. Heart hammering. And stared up. There, just barely visible in the dark, were fingers curling over the edge of the molding from inside the ceiling. I blinked, and they were gone. I didn't sleep that night. I called maintenance the next day. They checked the roof. Nothing. Said everything looked fine. I asked if there was any attic crawl space or duct big enough for a person. They said no. That night, I stayed up with the lights on. At 2:41 a.m., I heard breathing. Right above me. I grabbed a broomstick and slammed it into the ceiling. The breathing stopped. But a voice came down instead. Don't do that. It sounded like it was smiling. I moved to the couch. The next morning, I found the broomstick snapped in two, neatly, cleanly, and the ceiling directly above the couch had a new mark. Two handprints, like someone was crawling across it. I left, stayed at a friend's house, but when I came back to grab some clothes, the house was silent. Until I looked up. There, on the ceiling of the hallway, was a face. Not hanging upside down, but as if the man was flat against the ceiling, watching me. Mouth open in a wide grin, eyes unblinking. He didn't move, didn't blink. I ran. Came back with the police. They found nothing. No man, no prints, nothing in the walls or the ceiling. But I know what I saw. I moved out the next day. The recording in the walls. I found an old cassette player while cleaning out the attic. Heavy, dusty, still had a tape inside. I almost threw it out, but curiosity got the better of me. I plugged in fresh batteries and hit play. Static. Then a voice. My voice. Testing, 1, 2. But I'd never seen that recorder before, and I certainly never made a tape. I let it play. Minutes of silence. Then a loud bang. And footsteps. Running. A scream. Mine again. Then a whisper. Still here. I shut it off. Tried to convince myself it was someone else. A coincidence. Maybe it belonged to the previous owner. But then it played again. By itself. Same tape. Only this time, there were new sounds. Knocking. Scratching. A voice humming from inside the walls. I opened the recorder. The tape was blank. No spools. Just an empty chamber. I threw the whole thing in the trash. But the next morning, it was on my nightstand. Still playing. Still whispering. I smashed it. Burned the pieces in the fireplace. That night, I heard something through the vents. A click. A hiss. Then my voice, echoing faintly. Still here. Now every night at 3:03 a.m., I hear the recorder play somewhere in the house. Even without batteries. Even without tape. And lately, it's started capturing new sounds. Things I haven't heard yet. But soon will. I think it's recording from the future. And I don't like what I'm about to say. The Sleep app. I downloaded a sleep tracker app. It records audio through the night, captures snoring, talking, even sleep cycles. I started using it out of curiosity. For the first week, it worked fine. Some rustling, a few mumbled words. Then one morning, I noticed a file labeled Uncategorized Event. I played it. It started with silence, then the sound of my own voice, whispering, "It's watching." I don't talk in my sleep. The next night, Another file. This time, I whispered, "It moved closer." I began leaving the light on. Night 3, I whispered, "It's at the edge of the bed." I stopped using the app. I deleted it, removed the recordings, but they kept coming back. Same titles, same timestamps, and the whispers continued. "It knows I'm awake. It's inside the mirror. It wants my skin." I factory reset the phone, bought a new one, didn't download anything. But last night, at 3:17 a.m., my phone vibrated. One new audio file. No app, no source. Just a file called final.mp3. I played it. It was me, crying, begging, saying, "Please don't," over and over. Then a second voice, low, raspy, laughing. Then silence. My reflection was wrong this morning. It moved just a hair slower than me, and it smiled too long. I'm not going to sleep tonight, but I know the app will still record. Even without being installed, even if I bury the phone. Because now, it doesn't need the phone. It needs me. Someone keeps calling the house. I haven't had a landline in years. Who has, right? But a few years ago, I found an old rotary phone in a thrift shop and bought it for the aesthetic. Thought it would look cool in the foyer. I didn't plug it in. It wasn't even functional. Still had a frayed cord and dust in the dial. But last Thursday, it rang. Loud. Jarring. I stood frozen, staring at it. 3 rings, then silence. No power, no line. Just a dead phone that shouldn't ring. I told myself I imagined it, until it rang again that night. This time, I answered. There was breathing on the other end. Then a voice, hoarse like dry leaves. "Don't let it in." I dropped the receiver. Silence. I unplugged it entirely, cut the wire, threw it in a box. But the next day, it was back on the foyer table, and it rang again. "Don't let it in," the voice repeated. Every night, it calls. Same time, 1:11 a.m. Always the same voice. Until last night, when I let it go to the 4th ring, the voice changed. It was mine. "Too late," it whispered. And then the doorbell rang. I didn't answer. Couldn't move. But something scratched the front door. Slow. Steady. Like claws on wood. I peeked out the window. Nothing there. Just my porch light flickering. The phone rang again. And this time, it didn't stop. It rang all night. Even when I smashed it. even when I took it outside and left it in the trash. It's still ringing now. And the scratching? It's moved to the back door. It started with a knock. A man in a colored shirt stood on my porch, clipboard in hand. ID badge on lanyard. Just conducting a quick neighborhood survey, he said. 5 minutes. Strictly anonymous. He seemed normal, polite, well-spoken. I agreed. He asked the usual things. How long I'd lived there, if I felt safe, whether I had any pets or roommates. I said no to the last one. Just me. He smiled at that, jotted something down. Great, he said. Thanks for your time. I didn't think about it again until 2 days later when I saw him on the sidewalk. Just standing, just looking at my house. Same shirt, same clipboard. No one else was around. I watched from behind the blinds. He made no move to knock, just wrote something, then walked away. The next night, I found a folded note tucked in my mailbox. No envelope, just a scrap of paper that read, "You left your curtains open at 11:42 p.m. Red shirt. No TV on. Nice taste in furniture." My stomach dropped. I went through security footage. At exactly 11:42 p.m., the camera glitched. A brief jump cut, then static. I installed better cameras, reinforced the locks. 3 nights later, another knock. I didn't answer, but he left another note on my car windshield. Survey update. Subject increasingly paranoid. Observes from window. Reacts to movement. Closet light stays on at night. He was watching me inside the house. The closet light? I never turned that on. I moved a chair beneath the attic access, set up motion sensors. That night, I lay in bed, watching the monitors. At 3:09 a.m., the attic sensor triggered. Something moved up there. I called the police. They came fast. Went up with flashlights drawn. Found nothing except a flattened space on the insulation. And a clipboard. It was blank, except for one page. My name, my age, favorite shirt color, times I leave the house, when I sleep, where I sit to watch TV, everything accurate. Except one new line had been added in red ink. Subject will open the door next time. Don't knock. I don't know how he knew all of it. I haven't left the house in days. But every morning, there's a new mark in chalk on the front step. A tally. Always one more. He's keeping track of something. And tonight, the cameras glitched again. Only this time, when the screen returned, the front door was open. The thing that mimicked my voice. I was brushing my teeth when I heard myself call my name. Ryan? It came from downstairs. I froze, toothbrush still in my mouth. Ryan, it said again, exactly like me. Tone, inflection, even the slight rasp I get when I'm tired. But I hadn't said a word. I live alone. I rinsed my mouth, grabbed my phone, and walked carefully down the stairs. Ryan, it said again, closer now, from the kitchen. I stopped just outside the doorway and listened. Nothing. I slowly peeked around the corner. Empty. I checked the windows. They're locked. Back door, sealed shut. Every room, clear. Still, I felt watched. That night, I set up a voice-activated recorder on the kitchen counter. Nothing for hours. Then at 3:08 a.m., the device picked up a whisper. Ryan. And a perfect recording of me asking, who's there? I never said that, but the voice matched mine, down to the pause in the middle. I checked all my devices. No voice assistance, no automation. I moved the recorder to my bedroom the next night. More silence until 3:08 a.m. Then, Ryan, the sound of my door opening. Soft footsteps. Then my own voice whispering, I'm not in bed. I woke to the sound of my phone vibrating. A new voice memo had been saved. But I hadn't touched the phone. I played it. The same message. I'm not in bed. I turned slowly. No one was there. But the closet door was ajar. Just barely. I didn't move. Didn't breathe. I grabbed my phone and backed out of the room, slamming the door shut. I slept on the couch for days. No more recordings. No more whispers. Until last night. I woke up to my own voice humming from the bedroom. A tune I don't know. A tune that hasn't stopped. I'm writing this from my car. But my phone just lit up. New voice memo. From me. It's just breathing. And at the end, a whisper. You're not in the car. The garage remote. I came home from work and the garage door was open. I live alone. I never leave it open. My first thought was that I hit the remote by accident. But it was still clipped to my visor when I checked, and the light on it was dead. The battery was out. I went inside carefully. Nothing was missing. Nothing looked disturbed. Still, I locked every door, every window. That night, I set a broomstick against the garage door from the inside, just in case. It fell at 3:12 a.m. I heard it clatter, followed by a low mechanical whine. The garage door was moving. I grabbed a bat and crept to the kitchen. It was wide open. Cold air spilled in, but no one was there. I installed a security cam the next day, motion activated, alerts to my phone. The next night, I was asleep when I got a notification. Motion detected, garage. I opened the feed. The door was opening slowly, then stopped halfway. A man walked in, wearing a hood, gloves, holding something metallic. He didn't look at the camera. He walked up to the interior door and used a key. Walked in like he lived there. I called the police from the closet, whispered into the phone. By the time they arrived, the man was gone. No signs of forced entry. The key he used didn't match any I owned, but the lock had been swapped. They found a spare key taped under the garage windowsill, hidden like it had been waiting. The cops changed the locks, took fingerprints, but I still check that door every night. And I keep the garage remote on my nightstand now, because sometimes, just after midnight, I hear it click, even without touching it. And when I look outside, the garage light is on. The Man in the Hoodie. It started with a notification from my doorbell cam. Motion detected. It was 11:47 p.m. I was on the couch, half asleep, TV still on. I opened the app. A man stood at the edge of my porch light's reach. Hood up, head down, just standing there. He didn't move for almost 5 full minutes. Then he turned and walked away. Didn't knock, didn't say a word, just left. Weird, but not criminal, I guess. I saved the video and went to bed. The next night, same thing. 11:47 p.m. Motion detected. Same man, same stance. Only this time, he was a little closer. I turned on the porch light. He didn't flinch. Didn't leave. I called the non-emergency police line. They sent a cruiser, but by the time it arrived, the man was gone. The third night, 11:47 p.m. No notification, but I looked out the window anyway. He was standing directly in front of the door, face up, watching. I didn't move, didn't breathe. Then the doorbell rang. Long, slow, like he was pressing and holding the button. I turned every light off. After an hour, he was gone. Next day, I reviewed the footage. Only there was no footage. Just static. All recordings from 11:47 to midnight were corrupted. I replaced the camera. New hardware, stronger signal. That night, I waited again. 11:47 p.m. Nothing. I peeked out the curtain. No one there. Relief. But then, I heard it. Not the doorbell. A whisper. Right against the glass of the living room window behind me. You shouldn't watch. I turned. Nothing. But the next morning, someone had written on the window from the outside. I'm watching back. The Man Who Fixed the Fence. The backyard fence had a section that kept falling over. I'd prop it back up every few weeks, and it'd stay just long enough to forget about, until another storm or gust of wind knocked it over again. Then one morning, I stepped outside to water the plants. It was fixed. Perfectly, actually. New boards, fresh nails, sanded edges, even a layer of stain. Better than I could have done myself. Only I hadn't hired anyone, and no one had asked permission. I checked with the neighbors. No one saw a thing. It bothers me more than it should have that someone had been back there, uninvited. I checked the gate, still locked. So, how did they get in? The next morning, a note was taped to the back door. You're welcome. Keep it locked. That night, I installed a motion light over the yard. Set up a camera too, just in case. Around 2:30 a.m., the light clicked on. When I checked the feed, I saw him. A man in overalls and a trucker hat. Back to the camera, just standing by the fence. Not moving, just watching the house. Then he turned and walked away. I called the police. They did a walkthrough, said he probably meant well. Maybe a handyman trying to drum up business. They left. But the next night, the motion light clicked on again. Same time. No movement. But when I checked the camera the next morning, the footage was corrupted. Static. And then one still frame. The man. Closer. Just 5 feet from the door. Grinning. The image had been altered. Like a filter over it. Like he posed for the picture. I changed the camera. Hardwired it. And I installed new locks. I should have moved out. But I didn't. A week later, I come home to find my shed completely reorganized. Tools hung neatly. Lawnmower cleaned. And in the center of the workbench, a pair of gloves. Brand new. With a note tucked inside. You'll need these for tomorrow. I didn't sleep. The next day, I called off work and stayed inside. Watched every angle. Every screen. Nothing happened. That night, I heard the shed door creak. I ran out with a bat. Nothing. But the gloves were gone. And spray painted on the fence in clean block letters. Wasting my time. I didn't see him again for months. Thought maybe it was over. Until last week when I woke up and found a brand new deadbolt on my front door. Different style, new keyhole, and a note tucked under the mat. This time, I keep the key. The man in the yellow vest. There was road work being done outside my apartment. Orange cones, detour signs, machines that beeped all night. It went on for weeks. Eventually, I stopped paying attention to the crews coming and going. But one morning, I saw something that stuck with me. A man in a bright yellow vest was standing alone at the edge of the road. Not working, not moving, just staring directly at my building. He was there when I left for work, and still there when I got home. Later that night, I saw him again, this time through my peephole, standing across the street under a lamp. He wasn't holding any tools, just standing, staring. I told myself he was part of the crew, maybe on a smoke break, maybe watching equipment. But every night that week, he returned. Same time, same spot. Eventually, I called the city. They told me the roadwork had ended 3 days ago. I asked if their crew wore yellow vests and red cross hatching. They said no, not their standard issue. That night, I taped black paper over my windows. I didn't want to know if he was out there, but I couldn't stop myself from looking. I peeled the edge of the paper back around midnight, and there he was, in my yard. No flashlight, no movement, just standing at the edge of the tree line. The yellow vest almost glowing. I backed away, called the police. They said they'd send someone, but by the time they arrived, he was gone. No footprints, no sign anyone had been there. I showed them a still from my security camera. The officer leaned closer. "This guy is wearing a vest from an old city crew," he said. "What do you mean?" I asked. "Those went out of circulation over a decade ago. Red hash marks like that? That was our design before 2012. He paused. "And he's not holding a tool," he added. "He's holding a badge." I looked again. It was a city badge, but not a current one. It had my name on it, and the word inspection stamped over the bottom. The officer left. That night, I heard a knock. Not on the door, from inside the walls. I found a small hole in the drywall behind the couch, freshly cut. Inside, a yellow vest, folded crisp. And beneath it, a checklist. Every item had been marked approved, except one. It read, "Resident non-compliant. Entry required." Through the pet door. I live alone with my dog. He's small, lazy, and loves the backyard. I installed a pet door last year so he could come and go without waking me. It was never a problem. Until last Thursday. Around 3 a.m., I woke up to him barking. Not a warning bark, more confused, intermittent. I got up and found him sitting in the living room, staring at the pet door. It was swinging back and forth, like someone had just used it. I froze, then checked every door and window, all locked. I told myself maybe the wind blew it, maybe my dog just bumped it, but the next night, it happened again. Same time, same swinging flap. Only this time, my dog growled. I walked over slowly, turned on the porch light. Nothing. But the security cam caught it. A hand, reaching through the pet door. Thin, pale, with dirt under the nails. It stayed there for 27 seconds, just reaching. Then it withdrew. I downloaded the footage and called the police. They checked the yard, found faint boot prints, no clear match. They told me to stay alert, so I installed a locking cover over the pet door. Problem solved. Until last night, when I found the cover unscrewed, set aside neatly, and on the floor beside it, a knife. A long, serrated kitchen knife. Not mine. Taped to the handle was a note. Nice dog. The woman from Unit 3B. I moved into this apartment complex 6 months ago. Nothing fancy. One bedroom on the third floor. Quiet neighbors, decent rent. It was supposed to be temporary, just a place to get my feet under me after the divorce. For the first few weeks, I barely saw anyone. People kept to themselves. But there was one person I did notice almost immediately. The woman in Unit 3B. She always stood in her doorway. Never stepped out, just watched. She was maybe late 40s, thin, pale, shoulder-length black hair that never moved. Always wore a bathrobe, even in the afternoon. Every time I walked past, she stared. Didn't smile, didn't say hi, just watched. The first time I waved, she didn't react. Just slowly closed the door without breaking eye contact. It unsettled me, but I chalked it up to her being eccentric. Then one night, I came home late. The hallway was empty except for her door, slightly open. As I passed, I heard her whisper my name. I stopped and turned. She was still behind the door, just a sliver of her face was visible. "You should lock your balcony door," she said. I hadn't told anyone which unit I was in. The next morning, I checked. The sliding door was unlocked. I locked it, double-checked. Didn't sleep well. The next few nights were quiet. Then one morning, I found something on my welcome mat. A paper clip. Bent into the shape of a key. I knocked on 3B's door. No answer. I reported it to the building manager, but she just shook her head. Said the unit was empty. Had been since spring. I insisted. I told her I'd seen the woman. Spoken to her, even. She pulled out the records. The last tenant? A woman named Linda Harkins. She lived there alone. Found dead in her bathtub 6 months ago. She died the week I moved in. I asked if anyone had been in the unit since. She said it was locked for renovation. No one had a key. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about it. I went to the door of 3B. Knocked. It opened. Inside, it was pitch black. Furniture covered in sheets. Dust thick on every surface. But in the center of the living room, a small table with a photo of me taken through my window from her angle, and beneath it, an envelope. Inside was a single page with handwriting in neat, perfect cursive. I'm not the only one who watches. He's in your vents. He waits until you're asleep. I dropped a letter and ran. Cops came, Searched my apartment. Found a small panel beneath the bedroom closet. Inside, torn blankets, food wrappers, a phone charger, and a tiny camera lens pointed through a hole in the wall. Whoever was living in the vents, watching me, they had been there a while. Linda didn't imagine it. She tried to warn me. She might have been the only one who knew. And now, her apartment is sealed again. But every now and then, I find things on my balcony. Hair ties, coins, a shoe I didn't lose. Left exactly where I know I checked the night before. The cops say the crawl space is empty. But sometimes, late at night, the bedroom vent whistles. Not from air, from someone breathing. The thermostat war. Let me start by saying I take great pride in knowing the exact temperature I like to exist in. 72 degrees. Not 71, not 73. Anything outside that range is treasonous. So imagine my confusion when I came downstairs one morning to find my thermostat set to 68. 68. That's broke college student with a blanket and regrets territory. At first, I blamed myself. Maybe I'd bumped it. Maybe the cat walked across the panel. So I reset it. 2 days later, back at 68. Now, I'm not saying this was an act of war, but let's just say I began sleeping with one eye open. I live alone. No roommates. No kids. No ex with a key. And yet, every other night, the temperature would dip like I was living in a meat locker. So, I did what any rational man would do. I installed a camera pointed right at the thermostat. It didn't catch much, just a weird flicker around 3:13 a.m. And then bingo, thermostat changed. No visible hands, no movement. Just flicker and the numbers blinked. I checked the circuit box. Fine. I reset the Wi-Fi. Still fine. But the next night, the thermostat set itself to 65. 65. That's penguin breeding season levels of cold. I put tape over the buttons. A little note that said, "Not today, Satan." Didn't help. In fact, the tape was neatly peeled off and stuck to my fridge like a passive-aggressive art installation. Then came the whispering. Yeah, whispering. It started faint, barely there. Just a hum. Maybe some static. I figured it was the fridge compressor, or maybe my neighbor playing late-night NPR. But it got louder. One night, I followed it to the hallway. It was coming from the vent. I crouched, listened. I swear on all that is lukewarm, I heard it say. Too warm. Too warm. Nope. I slept in the garage that night. The next day, I called an HVAC specialist. He was nice enough. Checked the wiring, the firmware, the panel. All good. He made a joke. Said maybe my place was haunted by a Canadian. I laughed, but not hard. That night, I set up every camera I had. Thermostat, vents, hallway, bedroom. I watched the feed from my laptop in real time. At exactly 3:13 a.m., All the cameras fuzzed. And then the living room feed popped back on. Something stood by the thermostat. A figure. Fuzzy. Gray. Like static turned solid. It raised a hand. The numbers dropped to 60. 60. That's survival shelter in Siberia code. Then it turned toward the camera. No face, just blinking numbers across its head. 68, 67, 66. I shut the laptop, grabbed my coat, and spent the night in the nearest Waffle House. I returned at dawn. Everything back to normal. Thermostat, 72. But taped to the screen was a sticky note in my handwriting. It read, "Compromise or freeze." I haven't touched the thermostat since. We now alternate nights. 72 for me, 66 for whatever that is. It's not ideal, but relationships are about give and take, even with a temperature demon. The wife told me I should embrace my mistakes. So I gave her a hug. Oh, that guy. You thought you were alone, didn't you? But they've been watching the whole time. Like, subscribe, and maybe they'll let you sleep tonight.